Rosa Delgado had been a waitress at the Golden Spoon Diner in Sacramento for over 20 years. She started there at 19, a single mother with a newborn son named Daniel, and no one else in the world to lean on. Daniel's father had disappeared before the boy could even open his eyes, leaving Rosa with nothing but a stack of bills and a fierce determination to give her son a better life than the one she'd known. She worked double shifts, sometimes triple, waking before dawn and coming home long after midnight, her feet aching and her hands smelling of coffee and grease. She took extra jobs cleaning offices on the weekends and sewed clothes for neighbors late at night to earn a little more. Every dollar she made went toward Daniel, his school supplies, his shoes, his tutoring, and eventually his college tuition. Daniel grew up watching his mother's exhaustion, though he rarely understood the depth of her sacrifice. He grew into a bright, ambitious young man, eventually earning a scholarship to a prestigious university on the East Coast. Rosa cried with pride the day he left for college, having sold her only piece of jewelry, a gold necklace from her own mother, just to help cover his moving expenses. But success has a way of changing people. As Daniel built his career as a successful business consultant, he grew distant. Phone calls became shorter, then visits home stopped altogether. He married a woman from a wealthy family, and slowly, the diner and the small apartment where he grew up became a part of his life. He seemed eager to forget. Rosa would call on holidays, only to be met with excuses. Birthdays passed without so much as a message. The final blow came the day Rosa found out, through a mutual acquaintance rather than her own son, that Daniel and his wife had moved into a new home across the country. He hadn't told her. He hadn't invited her. It was as though the woman who had given up everything for him had simply become an inconvenient chapter of his past. Rosa was heartbroken, but she was not broken. Still working at the diner well into her 50s, she began writing in the evenings first, just to process her grief, then with a growing sense of purpose. She wrote about the nights she'd gone without sleep, the years of scraping by on tips and overtime, the quiet joy of watching her son take his first steps, and the devastating loneliness of watching him walk away as a grown man. She wrote honestly, without bitterness dressed up as anything other than what it was, and without hiding her own exhaustion, fear, and hope. She titled the manuscript Tips and Tears, a mother's story, and after months of rejection letters from publishers, a small independent press finally agreed to print it. What began as a modest release grew into something unexpected. Readers connected with Rosa's raw honesty, the story of a woman who gave everything to a child who ultimately left her behind. Word spread through book clubs, then television interviews, then eventually national media. Within a year, Tips and Tears became a bestseller, and Rosa Delgado, the diner waitress, became a name recognized across the country. The money that came in was more than she had earned in her entire life combined. But money was never really the point. For the first time, Rosa felt truly seen, not as someone's mother, not as a waitress refilling coffee cups, but as a woman whose story mattered. She used the earnings carefully. She paid off her small debts, bought a modest home of her own for the first time in her life, and donated generously to organizations supporting single mothers and working-class families. She funded scholarships for young women trying to raise children while working double shifts, just as she once had. She spoke at community centers, sharing her story not for sympathy, but to remind other struggling mothers that their sacrifices were seen, even when their own children failed to see them. Daniel reached out after the book's success, first through a cautious email, then a phone call. He said he was proud of her. He said he wanted to reconnect, to make things right. Rosa listened quietly, her heart aching with the same love that had never truly left her, but also with a wound that refused to close. So as she agreed to occasional calls, willing to remain civil and even warm at times. But something inside her had changed. The trust that once existed between mother and son had been worn down by years of silence and absence, and no best-selling book or apology could fully restore it. She never publicly said she forgave him, and in her heart, she knew she hadn't, not completely. But she also refused to let that unhealed wound define the rest of her life. Rosa spent her remaining years pouring herself into her writing, her charity work, and the community of women who found strength in her story. She had spent decades giving everything to one person. Now, she gave what was left to everyone who needed it. In the final pages of her follow-up book, she wrote a line that readers would quote for years to come. "I did not raise my son to make him proud of me. I raised him because I loved him. That love does not disappear simply because it was not returned. It only changes shape and finds somewhere else to live. Rosa Delgado passed away many years later, remembered not as a woman abandoned by her son, but as a woman who turned her deepest heartbreak into a legacy that outlived her, one that continued to give other mothers the courage to keep going, one shift, one page, one day at a time.